Yo, what is up, guys? Welcome back to another video on the daily upload streak. So, as you can see today, we're going to be doing an anime versus reality tier list. And yeah, I believe these are all the shows I have watched. I swear I'm missing one or two, but I just can't think of them. Yeah, I know, haven't watched that many, but I've watched a lot of good ones. So, yeah, let's get straight into it. One Piece, my expectation for this was probably A tier. Um, but it's easily moved in the top five. It's definitely a top five anime in my opinion of all time, and it is top five for me. So yeah, that's where I'd put it. I don't understand the hate on One Piece of it being too long. Honestly, that doesn't make sense. Wouldn't you want your favorite show to be really long? But whatever. Next we have Bleach, which I actually haven't finished yet. And I expect this to be top five. So far it's A tier, but like I said, haven't finished it. I'm in the middle of where they're training to fight like Okiora and stuff. Like they just defeated Grimjow, so that's where I'm at in the story. So I can't give that a fair rating yet, but I would just have it at A tier for now. It's not in my top five, but it is definitely a top tier anime and does not deserve the hate it gets. All right, next we have Black Clover, which in my opinion, or sorry, my expectations, I kind of had it between mid and A tier. But I'm not gonna lie, it's top five for me. I even have it above One Piece. I love Black Clover. In my opinion, this is the best new gen out. We just need more episodes to come out. Really, I mean, it is so good, so good. There's not much to say there. The only thing that I will say is like I heard Asta was like annoying going into it, and I think he's one of the best main characters in any anime. I don't understand the hate on Asta. He's actually a fantastic main character, and the hate that comes from that makes zero sense in my opinion. Also, keep in mind, I watch almost everything in dub. Obviously, you can't watch One Piece in dub because it's not caught up. So I don't know. Maybe he's annoying in sub, but yeah, for me, he was not annoying at all. Actually, I really loved him a lot. He was a great character. All right, next we have Naruto. I know this is Naruto Shippuden, but I kind of count it as both. For me, it continues into the same thing. Unlike other shows, like some other shows like Dragon Ball, I don't really see Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z together, but for Naruto, I put them together, and this is definitely my top five. I think. Well, my expectation for this is what I'll say. I had no idea really. This is the first anime I ever watched, and it is the greatest anime I've ever watched. I don't think it's ever going to be beat. There was one that got close, but yeah, Naruto, in my opinion, is the greatest anime of all time. There's just so much emotion in this show. It's just fantastic. I really didn't know what to expect because as a kid, I watched Naruto and Dragon Ball, but I just didn't remember it. And so when I got older, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna watch Naruto for the first time, pretty much, because I've seen some episodes, but I wasn't sure. So I watched it, and man, I fell in love with it. This is the greatest show ever. Like not even anime, greatest show ever. Naruto is fantastic. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. There's almost no hate on Naruto. I think everybody agrees Naruto is a good show. I don't I don't think everybody agrees it's the best, but everybody agrees it's a good show. So yeah, you got to go watch it. Next we have Beyblade. This is specifically the Metal series. I have it all in one. I didn't do Metal Fusion, Metal Masters, and the other Metal one. I honestly think it's A tier. I'd probably put it just behind Bleach. My expectation, well, I watched this as a kid as well, and then rewatched it obviously later. It looks like a kid show, so you probably expect it to be like mid or D tier, but it's really not. It is a fantastic show. Like the story writing is great and stuff, and people die in this show, man. I don't think people know that. Like it gets serious out here in Beyblade. Like they blow up cities and stuff, man. It's no joke. Um, it does have some kid stuff in it, but if you don't mind that, it actually is a pretty good story. So yeah. Next we have Chainsaw Man, which my expectation for this was trash, honestly, and I'm not gonna lie, I think it's A tier. It's actually a lot better than I thought. My problem is, before watching the show, I saw a lot of weird stuff in it, and I was like, man, that just does not look good. Now that weird stuff is still in it, but it's really not that big on the story. Um, so like the main overall story is really great. It's just the side stuff I don't really like the whole way Denji and Power act. The whole Power character in my opinion, sucks. My other problem with the show is that I don't really like any character. Maybe it's because it was only 12 episodes for the first season, but There's no character I'm looking at and I'm like, dang, they're really cool, or dang, that's fun. Like I don't have a favorite character. I don't really dislike any character other than Power, but I don't really like any character either. So that's kind of my problem with Chainsaw Man. All right, next we have Fire Force, which my expectation was A tier. I was probably expected to be like here, but it's definitely there. I don't know if it'll ever hit my top five. My top five is pretty strong right now, but the season three is going to be fantastic for that show, and it'll probably be top eight tier. It'll probably always sit just outside top five of my shows. It is so good. If you haven't seen Fire Force, I'd watch it. I don't see much criticism on it, so I don't. I guess people just haven't caught on to it. But yeah, it's a fantastic show. I'd go watch it. I think the only thing you may have problems with if you're like a super religious person, they play a lot onto a lot of religion, especially in season two. So, maybe if that stuff like offends you or something, then maybe I wouldn't watch it. But other than that, fantastic show. Highly recommend. I'd say it's a 9 out of 10 right now. One of the greatest side characters in all of anime. Arthur is goated. One of the best main characters too. Shinra's very, very good as well. So yeah, I would watch that. I have it 9 out of 10 right now, but I think it'll be 10 out of 10 when the new season comes out. All right, next we have Mob, which I didn't know what to expect. I expected either mid tier or A tier, just from the clips I saw. I was like, oh, it looks cool, but not that many people talk about it. But actually, it's in my top five. I think Mob Psycho is one of those anime that's perfect. The only reason why it's not like above One Piece, Black Clover, and all them, is because it is short. So lack of content there, but it is a perfect anime. I don't think there's a single bad episode in Mob, and everything makes perfect sense. The fights are amazing. Everything looks beautiful. The music's amazing. I mean, everything about this is amazing. It's a 10 out of 10 for sure. If you've never seen Mob Psycho, you should go watch it. It is a perfect show. I've never seen anybody say anything bad. The only thing I've seen people say bad things about is season three because it's not from the manga, and people hate on it for that. But they either haven't actually watched it or they're just talking out of their ass. Because in my opinion, season three is the greatest season of anime I think I've ever seen. I don't think I've seen any other season of anime that's better than season three of Mob. And even some people I know that have watched it, even though they don't agree with what I just said necessarily, they still think it was an amazing season. So the fact people call it bad because it wasn't in the manga, it's just not true. It is another fantastic series, and I think gave a better ending than what season two did. So yeah, I'd really recommend it. The only criticism comes from season three, and it's not a valid criticism at all. It's just butthurt fans being like, "It's not canon because it's not from the manga." It doesn't matter. Fantastic. Why are you complaining about more content? I don't get that. But anyway, perfect show. Not a single bad episode. I would really recommend it. Next we have Mashle, which I expected to be D tier, and honestly, I'd probably put it A tier just behind Fire Force. Now, as I'm recording this, it's not fully caught up in dub, so I haven't watched it, and I heard it was not good in sub, so I'm not in any hurry to. I heard it was a lot funnier in dub, and that's what I watched season one in, and it was hilarious. So I'm waiting for that. Yeah, I think the only criticism that I've really heard about Mashle is like pretty much it's just a parody anime, and it's not that good in sub, but really just watch it in dub. It's really funny, and I think the parody anime makes it funnier, but maybe if you're not into that stuff, I could get it, but it is really good. The story's really good and the comedy is really hilarious. The fights as well are pretty good. Now, I know what some of you are thinking as we're going into this. There's nothing in mid D or trash yet. Trust me, we're getting there. Just trust me. Okay. But yeah, while you're here, you might as well leave a like and subscribe, especially if you're enjoying this. All right, next we have My Hero, which I expected to be mid. And I'm not gonna lie, it's probably top of A tier. It could be in my top five if it wasn't for one issue, and that is Deku. Now, you're either a Deku like meat rider or you're a Deku hater. In my experience, and I hate Deku. I don't think he's a great main character. Now, a lot of people are gonna say, but he develops. Not really. I don't think people understand what that really means because Deku does not develop at all, really. I mean, in his fights, yes, but that's it. That's what I don't think people understand when I call Deku trash. In his fights, he is an amazing character, and I love Deku when he's fighting. Like his personality then is awesome. When he's not fighting, he's a little baby bitch. He cries about everything he can when he's not in a fight. He's just sitting there whining, complaining, and crying. And I'm not gonna spoil anything, but in season six, people are like, "Look at the development he takes." No, he's still being a whiny baby. He's just not with everyone. he's just whining on his own. He has nobody to whine to, so he's just sitting there being a depressed emo. Like he's not he doesn't develop at all. He's a crybaby during the whole thing. But when he's fighting, he's cool. But yeah, that's my only criticism, and it still lands it above these other shows like Fire Force, which I said is going to be a 10 out of 10 because the story is so good. It is so good. The fights are amazing too, and obviously it has arguably the greatest side character in all anime, Bakugo. And if you disagree, just wait till the new season's done. You'll love Bakugo. Bakugo's just the go. If you hate Bakugo, then you hate yourself. Let's be honest. So yeah, I don't think it'll ever crack into my top five. I don't think it ever really had a chance. Although I would give it a 10 out of 10 if Deku was better. I don't think it would crack my top five. Obviously, all the shows in my top five I think are 10 out of 10. But for I don't know, Deku just annoys me too much when he's not in a fight. So for me, I just can't. I could never put that in top five. All right, next we have One Punch Man, which I expected A tier, and it definitely was A tier. I'd probably put it above Mashal. I mean, it's really good. Obviously, this next season is about to like break the internet. If you don't know what's gonna happen, obviously I'm not gonna say it, but yeah, be prepared. This next season is gonna be fire. It is gonna be so good. I mean, they have two studios working on animating it. That's how you know it's about to be serious. So yeah, be excited for that. Comes out October, I believe, or September. I don't know, sometime. Comes out in the fall, I believe. So yeah, just get prepared for that. All right, next we have Sword Art, which is the second anime I watched. I expected this to be A tier, and this is trash. This show is god awful. Season one was good, and then they completely butchered it. Like season one was so good, it was like if it wasn't at least mid after that, I mean, it was gonna be trash. And it wasn't. Everything past season one was terrible. I was caught up to like season three, and season two and three are some of the worst pieces of media I've ever read. Season one was fantastic. Everything else was terrible. So yeah, I would not recommend it. Maybe if you just want to watch season one, but then you're gonna watch season one and be like, "Wow, this is great. Let me watch season two," and then you're gonna be like, "Wow, I hate myself for watching season two because it is awful." I would never recommend this show to anybody. Next, we have JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Obviously, I'm ranking this as a whole, and I'm not going to include the manga, even though I have read it. And this is, in my opinion, the second greatest anime ever. It is the greatest manga ever, in my opinion. I don't think there's a better manga than JoJo's. Um, you could argue Berserk. I could totally see that, but in terms of manga and what I read, JoJo's is number one for sure. The art style is just amazing, and back to the anime, because this is what this is really about. Oh, I forgot to say my expectation. I expected it to be mid because it looks weird. I'm not gonna lie. If you haven't seen JoJo's, you know what I'm talking about. It looks weird, but when you watch it, I think it's weird in the most perfect ways. And they don't explain it, which I love about the JoJo's communities. They don't spoil anything. So even the weird stuff you see, it has a reason. And majority of the time, the weird stuff is just to be funny, but they don't explain that. So when you see it, you're like, man, that's really weird. But then when you watch it, you're like, oh, he's just trolling around like they're just joking. It's nothing serious, right? Or like there's a reason they're doing that stuff. But yeah, I think that's the big misconception is that people think it is really weird, which it is weird, but in like the right ways. I would say it's probably the most unique anime, maybe even ever. It is that's good, I should say, because there probably are some unique things that are trash, but it's probably the most unique anime that is like really good. There's my only complaint, which this still lands in the top five, but Josuke season part four, in my opinion, is not that good. That is the worst part of the show for sure. Because the first half of it is just really bad. Technically, there's no filler. There's not a single second of filler in JoJo's, which makes it good, and the whole thing is good. And a lot of people like Josuke season, but in my opinion, it's pretty mid. Yeah, I mean, that's all I have to say about that, really. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Now, some people I know complain about the first part. It is a little bit slow, especially compared to the other parts, but it's only like 5 episodes, so and it's very, very important. Pretty much the first 5 episodes are almost all backstory. Don't get me wrong, there are fights and stuff in it, but it's mainly to build up everything else. So yeah, once you get past those, and you're gonna get into some real action. And man, is this show a masterpiece? Yeah, definitely top five. And as you can see, that's gonna round up the top five. I'm not gonna put a top six, but yeah, we got Naruto, JoJo's, Black Clover, One Piece, and Mob. in my opinion, the 5 greatest anime that I've watched. But let's continue. All right, next we have the original Dragon Ball, which, in my opinion, I'd probably put above Mashal. The original Dragon Ball is my favorite by far. I don't know why, but this was a really really fun watch. I know a lot of people start at Z, but even if you have watched Z and watched Super and stuff, I really recommend going back and watching this. The original Dragon Ball doesn't get enough credit for how great it is. It is really good. Now, it doesn't, you don't need it to get into the story. I think that's why a lot of people don't watch it, because if you just start with Dragon Ball Z, it explains everything perfectly. You don't need to watch Dragon Ball, but man, it's just so good. If you want to see like Krillin and Tien and Yamcha like in their prime, like they were so good. Like I don't, if you just start with Z, you're like, man, those guys are fodder. They don't do anything, but like, man, in the original Dragon Ball, they were killing things, and it's just such a good story. I mean, it's pretty much the prelude to Dragon Ball Z. It's just fantastic. All right, next we have let's just go to Z instead. Next we have Dragon Ball Z, which I'd probably put A tier, but I'd probably put it towards the bottom. Oh, sorry, I didn't give my expectations. Dragon Ball, I expected A tier. Dragon Ball Z, I expected top 5, just because of how highly it was praised. But yeah, I'd probably put it A tier. I don't think it's as good as the original Dragon Ball. And don't get me wrong, it's good, but there are some stale moments in my, at least the original. I know Z Kai is more cleaned up and stuff, but I just watched the original one, so yeah, there's some slow moments, but overall it's really great. Obviously, the big problem with Dragon Ball Z, which if you watched it, you know, is Gohan. Gohan is the greatest character until the Cell Saga is over. Then after that, he becomes the worst character in the entire show. Argue with the wall. If you still think Gohan's cool, you're a loser. I hate Gohan. He ruins everything for me after the Cell Saga. He is such a bitch, and I'll get to Super in a second, but yeah, I hate Gohan. So Dragon Ball Z has to go down a little bit. Goten deserves more of the spotlight. All right, next we have Dragon Ball Super, which I think is just slightly better than Dragon Ball Z, just because it's cooler and Vegeta gets more shine. Vegeta's one of the greatest side characters of all time, and I love Vegeta. I love him way more than Goku. So yeah, my problem with it, the reason why it's not higher as well, is Gohan. Gohan gets so many bullshit power ups that he does not deserve. I think Gohan's a fraud. I don't know why he gets these power ups. I don't know why. If you haven't seen the movie, yeah, and there's some stuff in the manga that shows how strong he is, and it's bullshit. Gohan doesn't deserve it. He doesn't work a day in his life towards his power. I'm saying he works a lot on his studies and stuff, but that's all he should be as a scholar. He should not be a fighter. The fact that he has these forms is bullshit, and the fact that he can compete with Vegeta and Goku is bullshit. He just doesn't deserve it at all. And the fact that he's stronger than Piccolo, who just got a new form as well and is trying to compete, it's bullshit. Gohan's got to be the worst character in Dragon Ball in terms of writing. He makes zero sense, and he's still a baby. He's a loser. I don't know what to say. Gohan is the worst character in the show and brings the show down a lot. I hate Gohan. The fact that he's a main character is terrible. And I know you're probably sitting here like, dang, this guy really hates Gohan. Yeah, I hate Gohan, and he does ruin the show for me because he is so important. If he wasn't important and stayed in that damn office, sure, it would be a lot higher, both Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Super, but no, he has to ruin everything. Like in the superhero movie, Gohan should not have been able to win that. That was bullshit. Or even if he should have been able to, they shouldn't come out in the manga and say like, yeah, he's on par with all these other people. Like, no, no, the fuck he isn't. He's on par with all these other people when he's sat his ass in the office and hasn't worked a single day for the past 10 years on his strength. Yeah, no, I hate it. Sorry, I'm going on a rant here, but I hate Gohan. He's a loser. All right, next we have Hunter x Hunter, which used to be in my top 5 till I watched Black Clover. So it is definitely the top of A tier. Hunter x Hunter is a masterpiece waiting to be finished. Every single arc in this anime will shock you. I mean, you will watch this anime and be surprised. Like every single arc is different. Like it starts with the first one, you're like, dang, that's pretty good. You go to the next one, it's like, wow, that is a huge step up. You go to the next one, it's like, did not expect that at all. My favorite arc is actually York New arc. I love Chimera, and that's definitely number 2, but York New is my favorite. Kurapika's my favorite character. Man, he was balling. Um, yeah, it is a masterpiece waiting to be finished. It's already a 10 out of 10, but obviously with no conclusive ending and not even really being close. yeah, it's not really a. It'll probably make my top five when it finishes, though. Um, I don't know what to boot out because my top five is all 10 out of 10s, but yeah, it is a fantastic show. And if you haven't seen it, even though it's not finished, I know a lot of people are like, "Well, I don't want to start it, and then it's not going to be done." Just watch it. It's fantastic. I mean, and you can wait. Like it's not going to make you itch at your skin to be like, "Man, I got to know what happens next." Like you'll be okay. Um, but yeah, I'd put it A tier, really solid. All right, next we have JJK. Oh, by the way, my expectation for Hunter x Hunter, I'd probably say was A tier. Yeah, that was probably my expectation. Next we have JJK, which my expectation was also A tier, which it is, but I'd probably put JJK underneath Dragon Ball Z. I think this is one of the most overrated shows of all time, especially right now. Don't get me wrong, it's good. And this might make some people mad, but what ruins it for me is not actually the show. Or I mean, it's still A tier, so don't get me wrong, the show's not ruined for me. But what makes it not as good as some of these other ones, and why it's not one of the best new gens in my opinion, is purely the fan base and some of the stuff in the manga, which obviously doesn't count towards the anime, but that's still my ranking for the anime. But the fan base is probably the worst fan base we've seen since Prime My Hero, right? Um, and I know people are saying like it's not that bad. No, I mean if you know a JJK fan, they're gonna spoil you on everything in the fucking show. Even if it's not in the show, they're gonna spoil you on the damn manga. They're gonna spoil you on the new chapters that aren't even out yet. That's my problem with this show. Is if you have social media at all and you have any anime at all on your social media or follow any page, like on Instagram for example, I have no anime that pops up. Now I follow a few accounts that do anime, but they don't ever pop up, right? When that new JJK chapter drops, I guarantee you I will see that on my page. It'll be a sponsored post for some reason for me, and then it will be a JJK spoiler. They just can't help themselves. The fan base is terrible. They can't help but to spoil the show for people, and in my opinion, it ruins it. Some of the stuff in the manga, as well, I'm not very happy with. And my biggest problem as well is a lot of my favorite characters don't end up well in this show. And they have a fantastic main cast. I will give it that, one of the best main cast of any anime for sure. But they just like to fuck with all the people I like, so I don't really think that's fair. I mean, sorry, I think that's fair for me to put it a little bit lower because if all your favorite characters, start getting fucked over, I don't think you would appreciate that either. While these other characters you don't care for are getting the spotlight, which is exactly how I feel about the show. Now I realize JJK's here again. I didn't mean to do that, so we're just gonna put it down there. Next we have Demon Slayer, which I expected to be A tier, and this shows the definition of mid. I don't think you can sit there with a straight face and tell me it's an A tier show or it's better than any of those shows in A tier. I mean, very simply put, the only good thing about it is the fights. The story is incredibly boring compared to other anime. If it's your first one, you might enjoy it, but compared to other anime, it is just incredibly boring, and the characters are even worse. There's two good characters in the entire show, in my opinion, and that's Zenitsu and Tengen. Every other character is so boring. I mean, they're just useless. And in my opinion, I tried to catch up on Demon Slayer. I'm behind a season. I tried to catch up, but these hour-long openers and closers, I can't do it, man. Like if it was like Naruto or One Piece or any of the shows in my top five, yeah, I could watch an hour of that. But it's Demon Slayer. It's not fantastic by any means. It's not an amazing story. Like I don't want to watch an hour-long episode of that, right? I want to watch one episode and then maybe I'll watch one episode a day of that to catch up. But an hour-long one is crazy. Like I'm not doing that. It's just a waste of my time when I could watch something better. All right, next is Skate the Infinity, which I didn't expect too much. I expected it to be mid. The show's trash. It honestly might be worse than Sword Art. I mean, I got halfway through the show and I couldn't do it anymore. The show is incredibly terrible. There's not a single good thing about this show. And if you can find something, if you want to argue in the comments, feel free because I will shut it down immediately. There's not one good thing about this show. It is awful. There's one good character, which is the red haired guy, which you'd think would be the main character, right? He's going to be the main guy skating. No, it's some blue kid who has zero, blue haired kid, sorry, that has zero emotion whatsoever, does not give a shit, gets a little bit too zesty with the main character. I don't know what that's about. And then like you get halfway through it, and now the evil guy's like some pedophile, and they're racing femboy like furries. Like yeah, this show just is completely all over the place and is terrible. There's no coherent story whatsoever. the only good character gets zero spotlight. He doesn't get to do anything. And everybody else is trash. The rest of the characters are awful. The show's just terrible. I don't, and the designs are not good for any of them except the red hair kid. Everybody else looks terrible, honestly. So, yeah, if you have any good things to say about that show, let me know because I don't. That show's terrible. All right, next we have Attack on Titan, which I honestly expected to be mid tier. I always thought it looked overrated, and I haven't finished it yet, but I would probably put it A tier. I'd probably put it just above Chainsaw Man. Like, it's good, but I don't know. I haven't been in a rush to finish it. Like, and in my opinion, Titans just aren't that cool. The story's great and all, but at the same time, it's got to have some interest to it. Like, if you look at my top five, Naruto, ninjas, dude, that's fucking awesome. Black Clover, wizards, that's fucking awesome. You can't really say anything about JoJo's because they kind of just are normal people with powers. One Piece, that's pirates, it's fucking awesome, dude. Mob Psycho, psychics, that's fucking awesome. Attack on Titan, Titans, yeah, it's just, Titans are kind of lame. I'm not saying they are in the show, but just as a concept, they're kind of lame. So, yeah, I think that's probably what doesn't make me put it higher. Now, the story so far is great. Honestly, I'd put the story at a 10 out of 10 so far, just from with how much I've watched. But just the concept in general just isn't that great, so that's probably why it's not higher for me. It'll probably climb up when I finish it. Don't get me wrong, like it's a great show, but yeah, I think I just don't really like Titans that much. That's probably why it's not that high. But it's still higher than Chainsaw Man, which I'd give it 8 out of 10. The lowest ranking in A tier is 8 out of 10. Like there's not going to be anything lower than that. Um so yeah, we can continue off that one. We have Assassination Classroom, which I did finish, and I expected to be A tier, and when I finished it I was happy with it. But I think it's mid. And here's the reason why. It is good, but I can't remember anything. This show is not memorable at all, and I finished it. I finished it quickly because I enjoyed it when I watched it. But I can't remember a single thing I mean, I remember a couple things, but overall, it's not very memorable. There's nothing that really sticks with me with this show, which so yeah, I still enjoy it, but it's similar to Demon Slayer. I mean, it's just not. I mean, it's definitely better than Demon Slayer. Like Demon Slayer put 6 out of 10. Assassination Classroom I put 7 out of 10. It's just it was enjoyable, but it's just not memorable. And I mean that sucks because I remember enjoying it, but I don't remember what I enjoyed. So yeah, very simple. I'd put it there, and I think that's a valid criticism for the show if you're going into it. But I do think you'd enjoy it if you watched it. But you're just not gonna get much out of it. We're like all the shows in A tier. I vividly remember stuff, and it's like that'll stick with me. And especially like the top five, so many life lessons and stuff, and emotions and that, and even ones in the top of A tier. So yeah, and for that to not have any, and I still enjoyed it, is like good but bad at the same time. Like it missed out on a lot of great things and was still a good show, but at the same time, it missed out on those great things. So how great can it be? All right, next we have Death Note, which I expected to be top five. I mean, this is mid tier. I'd probably put it at the top of mid. I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, but season one is good, but it all right, I'm just gonna be honest here. Misa might be the worst character introduction out of any character ever, and I only watched like two more episodes after she was introduced, and it's just terrible. And also after a certain character disappears from the show, it becomes awful. And yeah, I'm not. I hate Misa. I hate everything after that character stops getting involved. And yeah, I I mean everything past that is just not good at all in my opinion. Now the first part is amazing, but it goes to shit quick, and I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate for that. And this anime never has much criticism other than that it goes bad after that one character's gone. But yeah, I don't like it. I'm not a fan of the show. It was good, but I'd rather watch African lore to be honest. All right, next we have Blue Exorcist, which I thought this was gonna be D tier because it just does not look good off the pictures or anything. But I was like, you know what? I'll watch it, and I'd put it A tier. Uh, I'd probably put it just behind Bleach, honestly. Fantastic watch. It is so much better than you'd expect. Really, really solid. And I realized there is a show I am missing, which is Gurren Lagann. But I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, this show is definitely underrated. If you've never seen it, season three is coming out now, which I have not started yet, but I'm going to obviously because this show is great. there's not really much to say. There's not much criticism because it is an underrated show. So just watch it. You'll enjoy it. The only thing I saw, season 3 looks like it's animated differently, and it does not look that good of animation. Like, not saying the animation isn't good. What I should say is that the characters look different. And I don't really like that. So, yeah, that's what I'd have to say about that. Then we have Fairy Tale, which I expected to be A tier, and this is honestly mid. I'd probably put it just above Demon Slayer. Now, I might get hate for this, but my criticism is 100% valid. And that's gonna be that some arcs are trash and some arcs are great. Like the Edalus arc is awful. Like that is probably the worst arc of anime I've ever seen. But then like Tower of Heaven is one of the greatest arcs of anime I've ever seen. So I'm like just confused how they go from like one thing to another. Like how do you do Tower of Heaven, which was a masterpiece, a 10 out of 10 arc, to Edalus, which is at best a 2 out of 10 arc. I mean, it's just I don't understand that. I don't understand how that even happens. So I just think the inconsistency of the show just lands it in mid tier. Like there's a lot of cool stuff, and the characters are fantastic. That is definitely one of the strong points. But it's just hard when you have to sit through these arcs. And Edalus is long. That's not a short arc either, and it was so bad. And it's just like you have to sit through these bad arcs to get to the good ones. So it's just mid because it's just back and forth, either good or bad, good or bad. No in between. There's no mid tier arcs in my opinion. They're either really good or really bad. So yeah, that's fair to say. Next, we move on. We have Pokemon, which I'm gonna put mid tier as well, but I'm gonna put at the top because it's similar to Fairy Tail, but kind of different. Because you could take because Pokemon has many different series, but I'm just doing it as a whole, so that's why I put it mid tier. Like Kanto, fantastic. Black and White, fantastic. Diamond and Pearl, fantastic. A lot of the older ones are really good. A lot of the newer ones not so great. Sinnoh really wasn't that good either. I think Sinnoh, or is that no? Which one's the second one? That is Sinnoh, isn't it? Not Diamond and Pearl, but the one before that, like the I don't know. Anyway, I mean it has its good series and it has its bad ones. So that's why I put it in mid, just because it depends which series you're watching. Which I know I could have put them all, but yeah, I just put it there. Next we have Vinland Saga, which is gonna be A tier. I probably just put it just above Attack on Titan. The first season is amazing, and I haven't watched the second season yet. But yeah, just after the first season, it's really good. Now I know you're like, you want to put Vinland above Beyblade? Yeah, not really. I mean, Thorfinn's cool, but yeah, it's similar to Attack on Titan. Like Vikings, do I really care about Vikings? No, no, not really. So I think that's a part of it, but the story is really good. All right, next we have Rave Master, which I'm yet to finish, but I expected this to be trash. I'd probably put it in mid. I'd probably put it above Death Note though, because it's really interesting. The characters are really cool, but the story really doesn't make any sense so far, and I'm like 10 episodes in. Um, yeah, it's weird. This was the first show that was animated, same dude that made Fairy Tail. And yes, I do have it above Fairy Tail because you kind of know what you're getting here. You know it's not going to be like anything amazing, but at the same time, it does surprise you because the characters are actually really cool. Which is the same thing in Fairy Tail. This guy knows how to create some good characters. But the reason why I have it higher is because it is short. So even though it definitely has its off and ons like Fairy Tail, it's only 50 episodes, so it's not that bad. All right, next we have Golden Kamuy, which I'm watching right now, and I'd put A tier. I'd probably put it just above Chainsaw Man. It's not that high yet, just because the story is really confusing. If you've ever watched it, you'll know that it's like I don't know. It is just confusing. Obviously, I watched it. Oh, my expectation for this though was probably going to be mid. The only thing I knew about it going into was the cum fight, which I'm not going to explain if you haven't seen. But if you want to see it, look it up on YouTube. Yes, it's real. Um, and so I was like, oh man, this show's probably really funny. And then the first episode isn't a spoiler. It's like the first 5 seconds. He kills like 9 people, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what is this show even about? And even I'm like 2 seasons in and I know what it's about now, but still you sit there and wonder like, man, what is the show even about, right? Like, so that's my only criticism with it, but it is still pretty good. All right, next we have Solo Leveling, which I expected to be A tier, and I put this show in D tier. I don't really think the show's that good. I don't understand the hype behind it. It's the first half of the show is pretty bad. One of the most boring main characters I've ever seen, in my opinion, and that's the only character shown, like the whole first half that even matters. So yeah, kind of whack. I actually haven't finished it because I can't. It's just not good. I really don't like it at all. Yeah, I just think having a main character that boring in the first half of the show, not explain a single thing about the show. Yeah, I think that's terrible. Yeah, that's just bad. It's just so bad. It's definitely overrated. Now, people say like the Manhwa for it's good, but I don't care. It just doesn't look that good. And yeah, I know I'm gonna get hate for that, but I don't think it's that good. All right, next we have God of High School, which I expected to be mid. I watched this before Solo Leveling, so this was the first manhwa I read, and it is by far better than Solo Leveling. I'd actually put it A tier. I'd probably put it just behind Fire Force. If you've seen God of High School, it is fantastic, and if you've seen it, you're probably like me and are like, when the hell is season 2 coming out, right? Fun fact, of the 2020s, it is the 10th most watched anime, and it has not been confirmed for a season 2. To me, that's wild. I mean, how could you have so much success and not have a season 2 lined up? But, it is what it is, I guess. But, yeah, this is my anime expectation versus reality list, so let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this, leave a like and subscribe.